A millionaire CEO loses his car in a storm, and the poor black woman who returns it becomes his everything. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. Rain poured hard outside Cassian Ward's tall house in the city. Boom. Crash. Lightning flashed as he watched the news on his big TV. The reporter looked serious. "There's big flooding in the city," she said. "Cars were taken away by the water. One car, a fancy black Aston Martin, was washed away from the Riverside Towers garage." Cassian gasped. That was his car. He watched the video of it floating away. It wasn't just a car, it was a special gift from his dad. His dad gave it to him just before he died 3 months ago. Now it was gone, just like his dad. His phone rang. "Mr. Ward, I'm so sorry about your car," said Jeremy, his helper. "Should I call the insurance company?" "Yes," Cassian said quietly. "Handle it." They said the damage is around $300,000. "It's not about the money," Cassian whispered and hung up. Cassian walked to his bar and poured himself a drink. He was 40 years old and had everything. A big company, a fancy apartment, and more money than he could ever use. But now he just felt empty. The car reminded him of his dad, and now it was gone. 2 days later, Cassian sat in his office when his assistant knocked. "Sir, someone's here. She doesn't have an appointment. Says it's about your car." Cassian frowned. "Is she from the insurance?" "No." She wouldn't say. "Fine, let her in." A young woman walked in. She wore muddy jeans, boots, and a brown jacket. Her dark hair was in braids. "Mr. Ward?" she asked softly. "Yes." Cassian stood up. "I'm Talia Greer," she said. "I found these behind my building." She held out a set of car keys with the Aston Martin logo. Cassian stared. It was his keychain, the same one his dad gave him. His heart felt tight. "How did you find me?" he asked. "I called the car company. They told me who owned the car and gave me your office number." She gently placed the keys on his desk. "That's all, I just wanted to return them." Cassian picked up the keys. They felt heavy in his hand. "The car was crushed," he said. "I'm sorry," she said kindly. "It must have meant a lot to you." "It was my dad's last gift before he died," Cassian said without thinking. "I'm glad I found the keys then," she said. "Sometimes little things matter the most." She turned to leave. "Wait," Cassian said. "Let me give you a reward." "No need," she said. "Most things don't come back once the water takes them." Then she left. That night, Cassian couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Talia and her kind heart. She didn't ask for money. She didn't even seem to know who he was. A week later, Cassian had his helper find her address. He said it was for a thank you gift, but really, he wanted to see her again. He drove to a small bakery in a quiet neighborhood. The sign read, "Greer Family Bakery." Through the window, he saw Talia laughing with an older woman. She looked happy, with flour on her cheek and her braids in a bun. He took a deep breath and walked in. The bell jingled. Talia looked up, surprised. "Mr. Ward?" "Please call me Cassian," he said, feeling shy in his fancy suit. The older woman smiled. "You must be Talia's friend. I'm Aunt Margaret. Sit down, I'll bring some fresh apple cake." Before Cassian could say no, she hurried to the kitchen. "What brings you here?" Talia asked. "I wanted to thank you again," he said. "You came all this way to say that?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "I was curious," he said, "about you." "Why? I just returned keys." "Most people wouldn't," Cassian said, "not when the car was gone. My dad always said your true self shows when no one's watching." "Were you close to your dad?" she asked. The question surprised him. No one asked about his feelings, only about his business. "Yes," he said quietly, "but we didn't always understand each other." Margaret came back with cake and coffee. "For Talia's friend." "Thank you," Cassian said, "but let me pay." "First visit is free," Margaret smiled. As Cassian ate the delicious cake, he watched Talia work. She helped customers, fixed a wobbly table, and adjusted the ceiling fan. Later, when the cafe was quiet, she sat with him. "So, what do you do when you're not losing car keys?" he joked. "I work here. I also sew clothes in the back," she said. "You made those scarves and bags?" he asked. "I try," she smiled. You're very talented. And you? Besides suits and cars? I run a design firm, Cassian said. Architecture, mostly. Sounds fancy. It can be, he smiled, but mostly it's meetings and emails. A customer walked in. Duty calls, Talia said. It was nice seeing you again, Cassian. He finished his coffee and stood up. At the door, he turned. Talia? Yes? Would you have dinner with me sometime? Why? She asked, surprising him. Because I want to get to know you better, he said honestly. She studied him. I don't date customers. I'm not one. I'm just someone who came back for more cake, she smiled. Friday at 7, but I picked the place. Deal. That Friday, Cassian waited outside a small Italian restaurant. He didn't wear his suit. He even took a taxi instead of his fancy car. Talia arrived in a simple blue dress. You came, she said. I said I would, he smiled. Inside, the owner gave Talia a hug and led them to a cozy table. The food was simple but tasty. They talked for hours. Cassian told her about his father, how he worked hard but also loved fishing and bad jokes. What was he like? Talia asked. He was complicated, strong, generous. I wanted to make him proud. Talia nodded. He sounds like he lived fully. I didn't learn that part from him, Cassian said, just the work part. They laughed, shared dessert, and drank warm coffee. Outside it had started raining again. Let me drive you, Cassian said. I live 2 blocks away. She smiled. I'll walk. At least take my umbrella. She shook her head. I don't mind the rain. It reminds me that we can't control everything, and that's okay. She paused. I had a nice time, Cassian. Me too, he said softly. Then she kissed his cheek and walked into the rain. Cassian stood still, smiling. For the first time in a long while, he felt alive. He didn't call for a car. Then Cassian was walking in the rain. He had planned to take a taxi, but he changed his mind. Instead, he let the rain soak his clothes. Strangely, it made him feel alive, like he hadn't felt in a long time. In the next few weeks, Cassian started going to Talia's cafe more often. At first, he only wanted coffee, but every time he stayed much longer, watching Talia work and talking to her whenever she wasn't busy. One afternoon, Talia wiped the counter near where he sat. Don't you have a company to run? She asked. Cassian smiled and looked up from his laptop. I'm working from here today. You've been working from here 3 days this week, Talia said. Don't your workers wonder where their boss is? They know how to find me, Cassian replied, closing his laptop. And the coffee here is better than the one at the office. Talia's aunt, Margaret, was putting cookies in the display case and laughed. Sweetie, he's not coming back for my coffee, but maybe my apple cake has something to do with it. Talia blushed and gave her aunt a look that said, Stop! Cassian noticed this. Talia always looked shy when someone talked about their growing friendship. Later that night, after the cafe closed, Cassian helped Talia stack the chairs on the tables, while Margaret counted the money. You don't have to help, Talia said. I want to, he said. Besides, my penthouse is too quiet. Talia looked at him. You've never invited me there, you know. Would you come if I did? Maybe, she said, but I'd feel strange around all that fancy stuff, just like I did when I first came here. This cafe is different, she continued. Everyone feels welcome. Cassian nodded and looked at Margaret. Because of her and you. Margaret suddenly said, You two should go out and enjoy the night. I'll finish up here. But Aunt Marg, no buts, her aunt said. You work too hard. Go have some fun. Outside, the evening was cool and quiet. They walked without a plan, passing little shops and cozy restaurants. Tell me about your dad, Talia said. I thought I already did. You told me about his life. I want to know how you felt about him. Cassian was quiet. I admired him. I was afraid of him sometimes. I wanted him to be proud of me. He stopped. When he died, I realized there were so many things I never asked. So many talks we never had. Like what? Like if he was really happy, if all his success was worth it. Then he looked at her. What about your parents? Talia's eyes softened. My mom was a teacher. My dad fixed cars. We weren't rich, but our house was always full of laughter. She spoke more softly. After the accident, I kept hoping they'd walk through the door. It took years before I stopped looking up when someone entered a room. Cassian gently held her hand and she didn't pull away. They walked quietly until they found a small park. Have you ever been to the beach? He asked. Once when I was little. I was scared of the big waves. I have a beach house. It's about 2 hours from here. It's nothing fancy, but it's peaceful. Would you like to see it someday? Talia looked at him carefully. Cassian, what are we doing? What do you mean? Us. You're a CEO with a big company. I'm just a girl who sews clothes and lives above a cafe. We come from different worlds. Does that matter? He asked. It might, she said. I've dated rich men before. It always ended badly. They either got tired of my simple life or tried to change me. Cassian looked at her. Is that what you think I'm doing? I don't know what you're doing, she said honestly. That's what scares me. I'm spending time with someone who makes me feel like me, he said. Not Cassian Ward, the CEO, just Cassian. She smiled a little. And who is just Cassian? I'm not sure yet, he said, but I'd like your help finding out. That Saturday, Cassian picked up Talia in a small car, not one of his fancy ones. Talia raised an eyebrow. Is this a rental? Nope, it's mine. I just don't drive it often. She tossed her overnight bag in the back seat. Where are we going? I thought we'd take that trip to the beach house, unless you've changed your mind. I haven't, she said, though she looked a little nervous. During the drive, they listened to music and laughed at funny stories from Cassian's early days at work. When they arrived, Talia looked around. The beach house was a simple cottage on a quiet beach. This isn't what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Glass walls, a marble floor, a helicopter on the roof? Cassian laughed. That was more my father's style. I bought this place after he died. No one at work knows about it. Inside, the house was cozy. There were books, comfy chairs, and big windows looking at the ocean. It's beautiful, Talia said, standing by the window. So peaceful. Hungry? Cassian asked, heading to the kitchen. I brought groceries. You cook? Not very well, he said, but I can make pasta without burning the house down. She laughed. Let me help. Together, they made a simple meal. Cassian felt so comfortable cooking beside her. They didn't need to talk much. They just worked together. They ate outside, watching the sun go down over the water. You never talk about your mom, Talia said. She left when I was 10, Cassian said. She didn't want to be a mom or live the business life. Last I heard, she's in Europe with her third husband. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But it still hurts, doesn't it? Cassian looked at her, surprised she could tell. Sometimes I just try to be different from her. How? By not running away, by finishing what I start. Is that why you never take breaks? You work so much. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I never had something worth taking a break for. And now, she asked quietly. Instead of answering, he took her hand again. After dinner, they walked on the beach as the sky turned dark. The waves were soft and stars sparkled above. My grandma used to say, the stars were all the love in the world with nowhere to go, Talia said. She said each one was a love story looking down on us. That's a sweet idea, Cassian said. What do you think happens to love when it ends? Who says it has to end? Talia asked. Back inside, Cassian lit a fire and Talia made hot chocolate. When she gave him a mug, their fingers touched. Neither moved away. Thank you for bringing me here, she said. Thank you for coming. They sat close by the fire. When Cassian leaned in, Talia didn't pull away. Their kiss was soft at first, then deeper, full of feelings they hadn't said out loud yet. The next morning, Cassian woke up and saw Talia standing on the deck. She was wearing his shirt and watching the sunrise. He hugged her from behind. Any regrets? He whispered. She turned to face him. No, only that we can't stay here forever. Reality always returns, she said. It doesn't have to be the same, he replied. When they got back to the city, Something was different. They weren't just friends anymore. They didn't hide their feelings. Cassian spent more time at Talia's small apartment above the cafe. She taught him how to cook and fix things. One rainy night, water started dripping from the ceiling. "I'll call someone in the morning," Cassian said, or she said. "You could help me fix it now." Soon, Cassian was on a ladder in jeans and an old t-shirt. Talia handed him tools. His hair got messy and his hands got dirty. When they finished, the fix wasn't perfect, but he felt proud even more than after big business deals. In return, Cassian showed Talia his world. He took her to art galleries, jazz clubs, and gave her his father's favorite old books. One night, he invited her to dinner at a fancy restaurant called Elliot's. Talia wore a black dress she made herself. She was nervous, but she looked beautiful. "Everyone's staring," she whispered. "Because you're beautiful," he said. As they walked to his car, a man with a camera jumped out. "Mr. Ward, who's your date? Look this way." The camera flashed. Cassian quickly put Talia in the car and drove away. "What was that?" she asked. "Just a photographer. I'm sorry." "Why would anyone care who you're eating with?" "My company is always in the news," Cassian said. "People like to talk about my life." Talia was quiet. "I didn't think about that part of your world." That night, as she slept at his penthouse, Cassian watched her. She didn't seem to belong in the rich world, but somehow she fit better than anyone else ever had. She made the big, cold apartment feel warm, like home. He imagined a future with her, waking up together, holidays, maybe even kids. The thought didn't scare him. It felt right. The next morning, Cassian had to leave early for work. He kissed her forehead before leaving. At the office, newspapers were on his desk. A photo from last night was on the cover. The title read, "Millionaire's Charity Case. Who is Cassian Ward's mystery woman?" Cassian felt angry. "Call the PR team," he said. "Get these taken down." "We can't," said his PR boss. "They're already out. We can only make a statement." "Then do it. Tell them my private life is private." His phone buzzed. A message from Talia. "We need to talk. Come to the cafe when you can." The way she said it made him worry. Cassian canceled all his meetings and drove straight to the cafe. When he got there, it was very busy. People with cameras and curious people were standing on the sidewalk. Inside the cafe, Margaret was trying to help customers while answering too many personal questions. When she saw Cassian, her friendly face turned serious. "She's upstairs," Margaret said in a cold voice. "She's been crying all morning." Cassian went through the back stairs to Talia's apartment and knocked on her door. When Talia opened it, her eyes were red from crying. "Talia, I'm so sorry," Cassian said. "I didn't know this would happen. Did you see what they wrote?" She held up a newspaper. "They called me your latest distraction, your charity project." "It's not true. It's all silly gossip," he said. "Is it?" she asked. "What am I to you, Cassian? Just someone different to spend time with? You know that's not true." "Do I?" Tears came to her eyes. "I told you relationships like this don't work. People from your world and people from mine don't mix." "That's not fair," he said. "What we have is real." "Then why has no one from your life met me?" she asked. "Why do we only go to my neighborhood and my restaurants? Are you ashamed of me?" "Of course not. Of course not. Then why am I only now in your public life as some mystery woman you're secretly dating?" Cassian reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "I need some time," she said quietly, "to think." "Talia, please. Just go, Cassian. The reporters are waiting for their next big story." Cassian left with a heavy heart. As he walked through the crowd outside, people shouted questions at him, but he ignored them. Suddenly, rain started falling, hard and fast, just like the day they first met. Back at his office, Cassian looked at the storm through his window. On his desk sat the keys to his father's lost car. They reminded him of what truly mattered and what he could lose. 3 days passed, and Talia didn't call or text. Cassian tried calling her and sending messages, but she didn't answer. He even drove by the cafe twice, but the sign said closed for family reasons. His world, once neat and perfect, now felt like it was falling apart. At work, he couldn't focus. His assistant, Jeremy, noticed. After a meeting, Jeremy asked, "Mr. Ward, are you okay? You seem distracted." "I'm not okay," Cassian admitted. "Did the PR team do anything about those silly tabloid stories?" Jeremy looked nervous. "They made statements, but the story is getting bigger. People are curious about who she is." "Her name is Talia," Cassian said firmly. "Not she or mystery woman. Talia Greer." "Yes, sir. I'll make sure the team knows." That evening, Cassian sat alone in his fancy apartment, staring at his phone. Then he picked it up and called a number he didn't use often. "Henderson Residence," said an old voice. "Martha, it's Cassian Ward. Is Frank there?" "One moment, Mr. Ward." Soon, a rough voice came on the line. "Cassian? Everything okay? You never call on weeknights." Frank Henderson had been Cassian's dad's best friend and was the only board member Cassian truly trusted. "I need advice, Frank. Personal advice, not business." "Well, that's a first," Frank laughed. "Come over. Martha made her famous pot roast. I can't say no to that." An hour later, Cassian was sitting in Frank's cozy living room with a plate on his lap. The Henderson house was smaller than where Cassian's business friends lived, but it always felt warm and happy. "So," Frank said. "What's wrong?" Cassian took a deep breath. "I met someone." Frank raised his eyebrows. "A woman, Martha? Come in here." Cassian met a woman. Martha came to the doorway, smiling. "It's about time. Who is she? When do we meet her?" "That's the problem," Cassian said. "I think I already lost her." He told them everything, how they met, how close they became, and the mess the newspapers caused. "The worst part is," Cassian said, "she thinks I'm ashamed of her, that I was hiding her." Frank and Martha looked at each other. "Well," Frank said softly, "were you hiding her?" "Of course not," Cassian said. Then he paused. "At least, I didn't think I was." "But you never brought her to any business events or introduced her to your friends," Martha pointed out. "I was trying to protect her from all the attention and judgment." Frank leaned forward. "Your father was a good man, but he never let anyone see all parts of his life. You might have learned that habit from him." Cassian looked down at his plate. "I just wanted something real and private that had nothing to do with business or what people think." "And what does Talia want?" Martha asked gently. I don't know," Cassian said. "I never asked." Frank nodded. "Your dad made the same mistake with your mom. He never asked what she wanted. And when he finally did, it was too late. She was gone." Cassian felt those words deeply. "I'm not my father." "No, you're not," Frank said, "but you're his son. Sometimes we repeat our parents' mistakes without knowing it." Martha refilled his coffee. "If this woman truly matters to you, then think about what you're willing to change, not just for her, but for both of you." On his way home, Cassian kept thinking about what Frank said. Had he really been keeping Talia away from his real life? Was he treating her like something temporary? The next morning, he called an emergency meeting with his company's board. When everyone was in the room, Cassian stood and said, "This will be quick. For the past few months, I've been seeing someone. Her name is Talia Greer. She's a seamstress and works at her aunt's cafe. The newspapers are making fun of our relationship, and I want to be clear. Talia is important to me. I expect everyone here to treat her with respect." The room was quiet. Then Barbara Chen, the marketing director, raised her hand. "May I suggest something?" "Go ahead," Cassian said. "The Hammond Foundation Gala is next week. Everyone important in the city will be there. If you're serious, bring her as your date. Show people you care." Others agreed. Cassian thought about it. The gala was the biggest event of the year. "Thank you, Barbara. That's a great idea," he said. "Any objections?" No one said a word. At the end of the table, Frank gave him a small nod. After the meeting, Cassian went straight to the cafe. This time it was open, but Margaret was alone. "She's not here," Margaret said. "And even if she was, I'm not sure she'd want to see you." "Please, Margaret, I need to talk to her." Margaret looked at him carefully. She's at the community center teaching a sewing class for kids. Thank you. Cassian went to the plain brick community center a few blocks away. Inside, he heard kids laughing and followed the sound. He found Talia sitting with about a dozen kids, helping them sew. She looked up and stopped smiling when she saw him. She said something to the children, then came over. "What are you doing here?" she asked quietly. "I needed to see you," Cassian said. "To talk. I'm teaching. I'll be done in 20 minutes. I'll wait." Cassian sat in the back of the room. He watched Talia helping each child with patience and care. She looked confident and happy. One little girl showed her a lopsided fabric flower, and Talia smiled like it was the best thing ever. When the class ended and the kids left, Talia started cleaning up the fabric scraps. "You're great with them," Cassian said, helping. "They're great kids. Most come from hard homes. This gives them something they can control, something they can make." When the room was clean, she looked at him. "So? Talk." "I miss you," he said softly. "That's all?" "No." Cassian took a deep breath. "You were right. I was keeping you separate from my world." Talia crossed her arms. And I was scared." She looked surprised. "Scared of what?" "Scared you'd see my world and not want to be part of it. Scared you wouldn't want me." Talia's face softened a little. "Cassian, please." "No, let me finish. I've always tried to be someone my dad would be proud of, but with you I can just be me. And that's the first time it's felt like enough." She was quiet. "I never asked you to choose between your world and mine." "I know, but I still kept you out, and that's not fair." He stepped closer. "I told my board about us. I made it clear how much you mean to me." Her eyes widened. "You did?" "Yes, and I want you to come with me to the Hammond Gala next week. Everyone will be there. I want you to come as my date." Talia pulled her hands away. "So I can be shown off to all the rich and fancy people?" "No, thanks. That's not what I meant." "Isn't it? You just want people to know you're not ashamed of me." Cassian ran a hand through his hair. "I'm saying this all wrong. I'm not trying to show you off. I'm trying to show how I feel about you." "And how do you feel?" she asked. "I love you," Cassian said before he could stop himself. "I love you, Talia." She stared at him, surprised. "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. This isn't about what others think. It's about not wanting to spend another day without you." Talia's eyes filled with tears. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," Cassian said, even though his heart felt heavy. "Just know that I'm here, waiting." The next day, Cassian worked hard and tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes. Around lunchtime, his assistant knocked on his door. "Sir, someone is here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment. Send her in," Cassian said with hope. But it wasn't Talia, it was Aunt Margaret, and she looked serious. "Miss Greer?" Cassian asked. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Margaret said. "I'm here to talk." "Please, sit." Margaret sat down. "I've known Talia her whole life. I helped raise her. She's strong but has been hurt before." "I would never hurt her," Cassian said. "Maybe not on purpose. But your lives are very different. You live in a penthouse. She lives above a cafe. You go to big parties. She teaches sewing to kids. Like, how long until those differences matter?" "They don't matter to me," he said. "Don't they?" Margaret looked closely at him. "I love her. Not in spite of the differences, but because of them. She reminds me of what's real." "And what happens when the new feeling wears off?" "It's not about that," Cassian said. "It's about how I feel when I'm with her, like I'm home." Margaret stood. "Talia told me how you met, how she returned your keys. That's who she is, kind and honest. Now the question is, who are you when no one is watching?" Cassian sat quietly after she left. Who was he when no one was watching? He was always being watched by employees, reporters, or business people. But with Talia, he had felt truly himself. That night, Cassian drove alone to the beach house, thinking of how to show her the real him. He stood on the deck, looking at the waves. He remembered how Talia had looked when the sun was rising. On the drive back to the city, he thought about what he needed to do. The next morning, he canceled all his meetings and drove to a neighborhood he had never been to before. The first shop he went into was a small bookstore. "Can I help you find something?" asked the old man who owned the shop. "Yes," Cassian said. "I need books on cooking, simple recipes for beginners." After that, he went to a hardware store and bought some tools, like a hammer, screwdrivers, and a small toolkit. Then he went to a nursery and bought some potted herbs like the ones Talia grew on her windowsill. Back at his penthouse, he cleared a shelf for the books and made space in his kitchen for the herbs. He changed into jeans and an old t-shirt, then opened his laptop. Hours later, Cassian looked at what he had done. It wasn't perfect. The shelf he had put up was a little crooked, and the pasta sauce he made had too much garlic, but it was real. It was honest. He took a photo of his messy kitchen and the crooked shelf. He sent it to Talia with the message, "Learning to fix things with my own hands. Turns out it's harder than it looks." For hours, he didn't get a reply. Just as he was about to go to bed, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Talia. "The shelf is crooked, but it's a good start." Cassian smiled. There was hope. The next day, he sent Talia another photo. This time it was of the herbs on his windowsill. "Trying to grow something besides a company," he wrote. Her reply came quickly this time. "Don't overwater them." They kept sending small messages and photos for several days. He showed her his attempts at making a normal life in his fancy penthouse. No big promises, just small steps to show her who he was trying to be. 5 days after their talk at the community center, Cassian was trying to make pasta sauce again when there was a knock on his door. When he opened it, Talia was standing there. "Your security let me up," she said. "I hope that's okay." "Of course," Cassian said, trying to hide his excitement. "Come in." Talia looked around the penthouse and noticed the changes right away. Books, herbs, and the crooked shelf. She also saw the kitchen with the signs of his cooking attempts. "Something's burning," she said, pointing to the stove. Cassian rushed to the stove and pulled a smoking pot off the burner. "I got distracted," he said. "You really are a terrible cook," Talia said with a laugh. It made Cassian feel better. "I'm learning," he said, tossing the burnt sauce into the sink. Slowly. She moved closer and looked at him. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "Because I want to be someone worthy of you," he said, telling her the truth. "Not just a CEO in a suit, but a real person, someone who can fix things, cook dinner, and grow herbs, someone who doesn't need an assistant to manage his whole life." Talia reached up and touched his cheek, wiping away a smudge of tomato sauce. "I never asked you to change," she said. "I know, I'm doing it for me too," he replied, "because I like who I am when I'm with you." She looked around his penthouse again, taking in all the little changes. "The gala," she said after a moment. "When is it?" "This Saturday," Cassian said. "We don't have to go if you don't want to." She took a deep breath and said, "If I go, it won't be to make a statement or prove anything to anyone. It will be because I want to be with you. Because I love you too." Cassian's heart skipped a beat. "You do?" he asked. "Yes," she said simply, "though clearly I'll need to teach you how to cook properly." Cassian laughed and pulled her into his arms. "I'll be a willing student." As they stood in the kitchen holding each other, the rain began tapping against the windows. It started gently, then got stronger. "Seems fitting," Talia said. "Rain brought us together. And I'm never letting it take you away," Cassian promised, kissing her. Saturday night came with clear skies and a warm breeze. The Hammond Foundation Gala was being held at the Grand Hotel. There were red carpets and photographers outside. Cassian adjusted his bow tie nervously as his driver took them to the venue. "Are you sure about this?" he asked Talia one last time. Talia sat beside him in a beautiful midnight blue gown she had made herself. It was simple, elegant, and all her own creation. Her braids were pulled up, with a few strands framing her face. "I'm sure," she said, squeezing his hand, "and stop asking before I change my mind." The car stopped at the entrance, and the camera flashes started right away as the attendants opened the door. Cassian stepped out first, then turned and offered his hand to Talia. When she got out, there was a moment of silence before the cameras started clicking. Cassian held her hand tightly as they walked down the red carpet. "Mr. Ward, who's your date?" asked a reporter. Cassian smiled and stopped for a moment. "This is Talia Greer, the woman I love." Talia looked up at him, surprised and filled with love. As they walked into the gala, surrounded by whispers and stares, Cassian felt more certain than ever. This woman, who had found his keys in the rain and saw him for who he truly was the only treasure that mattered. Inside the ballroom, the chandelier sparkled above them, and the city's wealthiest people mingled in fancy gowns and tuxedos. "Everyone's staring," Talia whispered, gripping Cassian's arm a little tighter. "Let them," he said, smiling down at her. "They're just jealous." Barbara Chen, Cassian's marketing director, came up to them with a warm smile. "Cassian, and you must be Talia," she said, extending her hand. "It's wonderful to finally meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Talia replied, relaxing a little at the warm welcome. As the evening went on, Cassian introduced Talia to his colleagues and business associates. Some were curious, while others were surprised, but Cassian stayed by her side. When Frank Henderson and his wife Martha arrived, they embraced Talia like an old friend. "So you're the woman who's finally made this workaholic smile," Frank said, patting her hand. "About time someone knocked some sense into him." "I'm trying my best," Talia laughed. As the night went on, Talia talked to the wives of several board members. They asked her about her work at the cafe and her sewing. "You made this dress yourself?" one woman asked, clearly impressed. "It's beautiful." "Thank you," Talia said. "I've been sewing since I was a child." "My daughter is getting married next summer," another woman said. "I've been looking for someone to make some custom alterations to her grandmother's wedding dress. Would you be interested?" Before Talia could answer, a tall, elegantly dressed woman approached. She was in her 60s, with a surgically preserved face and diamonds at her throat and wrists. "Well, well," she said, her voice cold. "You must be Cassian's new friend. I'm Victoria Harrington, an old friend of his father's." The other women quickly left, leaving Talia alone with Victoria. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Harrington," Talia said politely. Victoria looked her up and down. "Quite a fairy tale, isn't it? The seamstress and the CEO, like something from a storybook." "I don't think of our relationship that way," Talia said calmly. "No? How do you think of it?" Victoria asked, sipping her champagne. "Cassian has always been ambitious, just like his father. Everything they do serves a purpose." "What are you suggesting?" Talia asked. "Nothing, dear," Victoria said with a cold smile. "But I've known the Ward men for decades. They use people. It's what made them successful." Before Talia could say anything, Cassian appeared. "Victoria," he said, his voice cold. "I see you've met Talia." Victoria smiled stiffly. "Yes, charming girl, so authentic." "If you'll excuse us," Cassian said, taking Talia's arm. "The orchestra is starting." He led her to the dance floor, where other couples were already waltzing. As they danced, Cassian noticed Talia's worried look. "What did Victoria say to you?" he asked quietly. "Nothing important," Talia said, not looking at him. "Talia, please, I know that look." She sighed. "She mentioned something about a Westwood contract in my neighborhood." Cassian's face darkened. "She had no right to bring that up." "So it's true?" Talia asked. "Yes, but it has nothing to do with us," Cassian said firmly. "My company is bidding on a project in Westwood. It's been in the works for months, long before we met." "What kind of development?" Talia asked. Cassian hesitated. "A mixed-use building, with retail shops, offices, and luxury apartments." "In Westwood, where most people can't even afford their rent?" Talia said flatly. Cassian tried to explain. "The city has approved the zoning changes. The neighborhood is changing." "You mean gentrifying," Talia said, upset. "Pushing people out who've lived there for years. That's not my intention." "But it's the result, isn't it?" Talia said, looking around the glittering ballroom, suddenly feeling out of place again. I need some air. Talia walked quickly through the crowd, heading for the terrace doors. Cassian followed, ignoring the curious looks from other guests. Outside, the cool night air surrounded them. Talia, please, he said. Let me explain. Explain what? She asked. That while you were falling in love with me, you were planning to rebuild my neighborhood into something people can't afford? It's not like that, he said. But it's the result, isn't it? She said sadly. Cassian ran a hand through his hair. What do you want me to do? Pull out of the project? It'll happen with or without my company. I want you to understand why this matters, she said, her voice shaking. That neighborhood isn't just real estate. It's people's lives, their homes, their community. They stared at each other. The distance between them felt bigger than ever. I need to go home, Talia said finally. I'll have the driver take us, Cassian offered. No, Talia said, shaking her head. I'll get a taxi. I need to think. Before Cassian could protest, she walked back inside and disappeared into the crowd. Back at her apartment above the cafe, Talia sat by the window, watching raindrops fall on the street below. In just a few months, Cassian had become a big part of her life. She loved him. His kindness, his efforts to change. But Victoria's words made her doubt. Was she just a convenient connection to the community his company wanted to change? Had she been too naive to think someone like Cassian could truly understand her world? The next morning, Aunt Margaret found her sitting by the window. You look like you haven't slept, Margaret said, setting a cup of coffee beside her. Want to talk about it? Talia told Margaret everything. About the gala, Victoria's comments, and the Westwood project. Do you think he's using me? She asked when she was done. Margaret thought for a moment. I've seen the way that man looks at you. If he's acting, he deserves an Oscar. Talia smiled faintly. But sometimes love is complicated, Margaret added, and sometimes it takes more than love to change the world. Don't be afraid to ask him the tough questions. Talia took a deep breath. I just don't know if he's the one who can help me change things. Maybe he's the one I need to change. Cassian was trying his best to act like everything was fine, but deep down he knew he was hurting people he cared about. Talia didn't know what to do, so she asked Margaret for advice. Talk to him, Margaret said. Give him a chance to decide what kind of man he wants to be. That night, Cassian stayed awake in his penthouse. He thought about everything. By morning, he made calls, looked at contracts, and came up with a new plan. When work began, he called an emergency meeting with his project team. We're changing the Westwood project, he told them. I want new plans by the end of the week. One of the team members tried to protest. But, sir, we've already spent millions on the current design. The board won't agree to change it. Cassian was firm. Let me worry about the board. This is happening. After the meeting, Cassian went to Talia's cafe, but it was closed again. He called her, but it went to voicemail. He drove to the community center where she taught sewing, but they told him she wasn't there that day. As he was leaving, he ran into a little girl from her class. Are you looking for Miss Talia? The little girl asked. Yes, Cassian said. Do you know where she is? She's at the old theater. They're trying to save it from being torn down, the girl said. Cassian thanked her and drove to the Westwood Theater. It was an old, beautiful building that had fallen apart. Outside, a small group of people were holding signs to stop it from being knocked down. Talia was among them, giving out flyers. When she saw Cassian, she was surprised. What are you doing here? She asked. I came to find you, he said. You weren't answering your phone. I needed some space, Talia said. Cassian looked at the theater behind her. What's going on here? The theater was sold to developers, Talia explained. It's been part of this neighborhood for 60 years. People came here for their first dates, their first movies. Now they're going to tear it down and build expensive apartments no one here can afford. Cassian looked at the building more closely. Who bought it? A company called Meridian Holdings, Talia said. They're one of your competitors. Cassian took a deep breath. Can we talk privately? They walked to a nearby park bench, and for a moment they just sat in silence watching people go by. I've been up all night, Cassian said finally, thinking about what you said, about the Westwood Project, about the kind of man I want to be. Talia looked at him carefully. And? I've been wrong, Cassian admitted. I only saw the project as a way to make money. I didn't think about the people who live there, but you were right. I'm changing the Westwood Project. Talia looked unsure. How? Instead of luxury apartments, half of the units will be affordable housing. We'll give local businesses lower rent. We'll hire people from the community for construction and other jobs, Cassian explained. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Talia was still unsure. Did the board approve all of this? Not yet, Cassian said, but they will, or I'll step down. Talia was surprised. You would do that for what's right? Yes, Cassian said. I'm learning. You taught me about integrity, and now I want to live it every day. Talia looked at him for a moment, then let him hold her hand. What if Victoria was right? She asked. What if part of you was with me because it helped your business? Cassian looked deep into her eyes. The day you came to my office with those keys, I had no idea who you were or where you lived. I fell in love with you because of your kindness, your honesty, and your strength, not because of where you live. Talia smiled, but she still had doubts. I believe you, she said. But this isn't just about us. It's about two different worlds. Can they come together without one hurting the other? I don't know, Cassian admitted, but I want to try with you. 3 months later, the Westwood Community Center opened in the old theater. Cassian had bought it from Meridian Holdings and worked with the community to keep its history while adding modern features. There was even a new sewing classroom where Talia taught. At the grand opening, Talia stood at the front cutting the ribbon. She wore a simple dress she had designed, and her smile made the whole room light up. Afterward, Cassian's Aunt Margaret came over to him. You did good, she said, giving him a playful nudge. Cassian smiled. I had help, he said, watching Talia. Margaret patted his arm. When Talia's parents died, I worried she'd never find someone who deserved her. But I'm glad I was wrong. That evening, after the celebration, Cassian and Talia walked together through the quiet streets of Westwood. The neighborhood was changing, but now it was including the people who lived there instead of pushing them out. I have something for you, Cassian said, stopping beneath a streetlight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Talia's heart skipped a beat. Cassian, before you say anything, this isn't a ring. Not yet. I know we're still figuring things out. Talia opened the box, and inside was a small old car key. It was the same one she had returned to him when they first met. I don't understand, she said. When you gave me back these keys, Cassian said, you said most things don't come back once the water takes them. Cassian touched her cheek gently. But you came back to me, even after the storm. Talia smiled, her eyes shining. And I always will. Cassian smiled back. Move in with me. Talia was shocked. Not to the penthouse. I'm selling it, he said. I bought a brownstone. It's not too big or too fancy. It's somewhere between your world and mine. It needs work, though. The ceiling leaks when it rains. Sounds perfect, Talia laughed, as long as you promise to help me fix it. With my own hands, Cassian promised, but I might need some help. They sealed the promise with a kiss. Rain started falling, but it wasn't the heavy storm that had once ruined his car. It was a soft, gentle shower. 6 months later, Talia stood in the small garden behind their brownstone, picking herbs for dinner. The house was everything Cassian had promised. It wasn't too fancy, but it wasn't too small either. It had a room for her sewing and space for his books. They had worked together to fix the roof and paint the walls. They planted flowers that grew even in the tough city. Inside, Cassian was on the phone with a client, explaining why their design needed to consider the neighborhood. He had changed. Not completely, but in ways that mattered. He still ran his company with ambition, but now he cared more about the community. Talia still worked at the cafe 3 days a week, but she also ran the community center's arts program. She had started a small business making custom clothes. Her designs had gotten attention and she was getting more clients. It began to rain again, and Talia hurried inside with her basket of herbs. Cassian was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. He was slowly getting better at cooking. "Need help?" Talia asked, setting down her basket. "Always," Cassian said with a smile. "But I'm getting better." Talia picked up a knife and stood beside him. Their shoulders touched as they worked together. Later that evening, after dinner, they sat on the small porch, watching the rain. Cassian pulled out another small velvet box. "I was going to wait until our anniversary next month," he said, "but this feels right." Talia's heart raced as Cassian opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, not too big but beautiful. "Talia Greer," Cassian said, "with certainty, will you marry me?" Talia looked at him. He wasn't the CEO in a suit anymore. He was the man who had learned to fix roofs and cook meals. He was the man who proved that love could bring together two worlds without destroying either one. "Yes," Talia said, her voice full of emotion. "Yes, I will." As Cassian slipped the ring onto her finger, the rain grew heavier. But this time, the sound wasn't scary. It reminded them of the storm that had brought them together, and how sometimes what the water takes away, it returns, even better than before. They sat together, Cassian's arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. The rain fell on the garden they had planted. They were two people from different worlds, but they had found something special in each other. It couldn't be measured by wealth or status, but by the quiet courage of an open heart. "I love you," Cassian whispered against her hair. "I love you too," Talia said. The rain softly surrounded them, and in each other's arms, they were safe, stronger than anything that might come their way. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.